Right then. Um, Hello and welcome everyone. It's another week. It's another webinar. Um, for those of you who have not joined us before, my name is Matt, and I'm joined this week by my colleague James. Hello, James. How are you?
Hi, very good. As always, yeah, lovely to be here and to help you out with this open day today.
So today, we are going to be talking about the process of sending written work into Oxford and Cambridge. This is a part of the process that's a little well hidden down the bottom of some of the web pages, and so it's something that's really valuable to have planned out in advance for a range of reasons we're going to see as we go through things. But speaking of knowing what you're doing and giving people proper context for things, I'm going to introduce myself properly. So my name is Matt. My role here at Uni Admissions is that I look after the research side of the operation. So everything that we put out in terms of open days like this, our books, our learning materials, all of these things, my job is to make sure that everything that we say will work does work, that we can back it up in some nice spreadsheets, that we have good evidence underlying all of the ideas and strategies and approaches we take. And yeah, that's what I do. James, what do you do? Why are you here?
I often wonder that, Matt, actually, but no, nice to meet you guys. My name's James. I work with our students to kind of create a plan of action for them, help them navigate their applications so that they're, doing everything that they need to do to give them the best chance of getting in their offers, essentially.
Yes, but essentially, I make the bullets and James figures out which gun to put them in.
I like that.
I don't. I think that sounds horrible. I regretted that at the moment I'd said it. Um, so, let's get cracking. The first question here, and this is of course the most obvious question, is why is it that Oxford and Cambridge want to see written work from you? Why are they not satisfied with simply your GCSE and A-level scores? Now, the first answer to this is that the situation has, in the last few months, changed very dramatically as to quite how well they can judge you on the basis of things like your personal statement. I had some fun with this yesterday. Here is my personal statement that I've written. Definitely me, not a computer. One of the reasons they want to see a piece of real work that you've done in the context of school is that it has never been easier to make a fake personal statement. This took me, well, it took me about 30 seconds. It took the computer slightly longer to write it, but the value of the personal statement is going through a bit of a difficult time at the moment, thanks to tools like this one. So the value of seeing proper written work has really gone up. That was a little silly. Let's actually answer this question without resorting to Chat GPT. So the first reason that universities want to look at written work is that the indications you can get from A-level and GCSE grades have been a little bit difficult the last few years. During the time of the pandemic, students were having their grades determined by their teachers rather than by the exam boards, and unsurprisingly, although I don't think it was as big a problem as people make out, this has meant that people did tend to do, on the whole, better than they might otherwise have done. Now, since things have gone back to normal, these levels are coming back down, but what it does mean is that for students in the process of applying this year and next year, if I've got my maths right, those GCSE grades aren't going to be as indicative of student performance as they otherwise would have been, because so many more students were getting 7s and 8s and 9s. And so understanding how good a student is based on that information alone is more difficult because there are simply more people getting those high scores. So the other thing to bear in mind here is that competition for places at Oxbridge has really ramped up over the past 5 or 6 years. This means that there are, looking here, something like 7 people applying for each place at Oxford, and something like about 6.5 for every place at Cambridge. And what this means is that when you are choosing between, let's imagine that James goes on a date tonight, and he meets two lovely, charming people. Choosing between 2 people isn't too difficult. It's only 2. You only need 1. Whereas if you're choosing between 8 or 9 or 10 people, it can be really hard to make a decision because it's difficult to get enough information. It's difficult to make meaningful comparisons. And so what you want to do is to get more and more information about each of those people in order to make an informed decision, because you can't make straightforward comparisons. And this is what the admissions process has become like. If you're only choosing between 2 students, picking which of them you like better is relatively straightforward. If you're choosing between 6 or 7 or 8 or even 9, and in the case of the most popular courses like economics and management and PPE, where you might have 12 or 15 people applying for one place, deciding which of those 15 people is the one you want is very difficult. And so it can be, we see a lot of difficult and frustrating effects where you can be the second best out of 15, but we can never be totally confident that that measurement of who was the best was accurate enough to be able to really tell who was best and who was second best. I say Oxford and Cambridge have never been more competitive, and these offer rates have been falling, but this also means that the returns to having a really smart strategy are much higher than they used to be. There is this counterintuitive effect, which is that as competition for something goes up, at a certain point, average quality will start to fall. Essentially, if you imagine everyone in the UK applied for Oxford to Oxford, the average quality of the person applying would fall because there would be a lot of people who are applying now who otherwise wouldn't have done. And this all means that the advantages you can get from having a smart strategy are much higher than they would otherwise be. If you're only competing with one other person, there probably isn't a massive amount you can do. Whereas if you're competing with 10 or 15 other people, the advantages you can accrue, the extra strengths you get from being 10, 15% better at performing in the tests, performing the written work, all those sorts of things really matter. So this brings us on to the pie chart, which is perfect timing because I need to dry my throat with a little bit of water. James, tell us about the pie chart.
No problem at all. By the way, Matt, loving the analogies today. 2 very interesting ones so far. I'm looking forward to any more that you pull out of the bag.
I don't know if you've looked at the slides in advance, but you're in for a treat.
Oh gosh, well, very excited about that. Yeah, I think what Matt's saying is so true. How you approach your application is so important to the outcome of your application. And so I think having a really clear understanding of how you're assessed in your application is really, really important. And that is what this pie chart demonstrates. So essentially, we've got the different elements of an application. So GCSEs, the admissions test, the vast majority of subjects have an admissions test, the interview, and everything else, which is the personal statement, written work, and other less sort of tangible things. And essentially how it works is it's around 35% based on the admissions test, around 35% based on the interview, roughly 20% based on grades, and then 10% based on everything else. So again, really important to consider that. A lot of students assume that the personal statement is, one of the most important parts of an application. Generally speaking, it's the least important. It's not to say that it doesn't have to be very good. Everything has to be very good. But actually, with the inflation of grades and all of these other things, the increasing competition, really it comes down to the admissions tests and interviews in terms of how you can set yourself apart from other applicants. So when you're preparing this year, next year, whenever you're applying, it's really important that you prioritize your preparation towards the things that will actually make a tangible difference to your chances of success. So yes, I hope that makes sense.
Lovely stuff. Thank you very much, James. So what does this mean? What are the implications of all this? So the first thing I think that comes as a surprise to a lot of students here is this means that here at the beginning of April, before you come to apply in the autumn, you still have control over 75, maybe even a little bit more % of the chances of your chances of getting in. The things you're going to do now, the personal statement, the admissions test, sending in written work, all of these things matter almost as much as your GCSEs. Each one of them matters almost as much as all of your GCSEs. Putting your energy into those things now, making sure that you're doing a good job, that you're really showing yourself to your best, those can make a really big difference to your chance of getting in. And this is where I talk about, this is very much a Rohan point, the kind of thing that our founder Rohan is always talking about. It isn't about the level you're at, it's about the rate at which you're improving. If you're only improving very slowly, then you will get overtaken remarkably quickly. Even if you start at a high level, if you're not improving, people will catch up with you. But if you're improving at a really good rate, you will be amazed by how quickly your level goes up, particularly relative to people who you thought that you might be behind. It's all about the speed you're traveling at, not where you are. Now, the next question you'll probably have is, do I need to send written work in? For many of you who are joining us on the call, you may not need to send any written work in, depending on the subject you choose to apply to. Please don't leave. We'll be doing a Q&A at the end in a little after past. And so I'd really like you to stick around for that, and we will answer questions that aren't related to written work as well. But this may be excellent news for you, because you may have been panicking, thinking, oh God, I have to send in written work. And it may be the case that you don't have to. So for students applying to Oxford, these are the subjects you need to send written work in for. Broadly speaking, it's your humanities subjects. And this includes variations on a subject. So it's not just for classics, but also for classics and English, classics and modern languages, the same for English and modern languages, as well as English on its own, that sort of thing. So if you are planning to study any of these subjects, then you will want to be ready with some written work. And for Cambridge, a lot of subjects, they will offer 2 pieces of written work. This isn't too scary, but these are the subjects where that applies. I've thrown in some abbreviations there, which I'd meant to take out. HUSPUS is Human, Social and Political Sciences, which is kind of the Cambridge equivalent of PPE, and MML is Modern and Medieval Languages, which is what it says on the tin. That's where you study French or Dutch or whatever. So we've established why the university might be interested in your written work, and we've established whether you have to do it or not, and we've talked a little bit about the different weights of parts of your application. But I think probably you're also a little skeptical about why they might want to read your essays. So let's try to dig into this in a little bit more detail. The first reason here is that no one, literally no one, can write a really good essay under exam conditions. You're sat in a big room surrounded by other people. You may only have an hour. You aren't allowed to go and look up anything. You've got to have all of your quotes in your head if you're putting quotes into your essay. You've got to have all of your sources, all of your ideas. Everything needs to be there, ready. You know, it's like trying to make a delicious gourmet meal, but you're at a picnic. All you've got is the stuff you brought with you. And if that stuff isn't cooked, it isn't ready, you probably haven't even gotten good knives. You're going to be really limited in what you can achieve. You can probably do something good, but it's going to be good by the standards of a picnic. It's going to be good by the standards of an exam essay. It's not going to be good by the standards of something you could do at home in your own kitchen. It's certainly not going to be good to the kind of standards that you could have achieved if you had been given, hours and weeks, and you'd had access to a good library and all the sources you wanted, and you could have really taken time to make it really good and clear and well developed. That means that essays in an exam context are testing something totally different from what you're being tested on in a piece of homework, or even a longer piece of work like an EPQ or an extended essay in the IB. These are completely different skills that are being tested. And so the admissions tutors, they want to see both things. They want to see what you're best, not just what you're like under exam conditions. It's also really helpful for students who aren't at their best under time pressure. Some students just don't work well, given an hour, given 30 minutes to write an essay. Others really do. But it's one of those things that really depends on your learning style, on the kind of person you are. It can depend a lot on confidence on the day. If you've had a bad time in the first half of the exam, then really resetting yourself and getting back in the right vibe for the essay section can be really difficult. Adding the written work in really improves fairness for students with all of these situations, as well as giving you the chance to really show off your best work. Because, like I say, no one does their best work in the space of an hour in an exam hall. I put that slide in there twice, basically. Don't know what happened there. That'll teach me not to check through these thoroughly. This brings me to sort of the point that we're going for here. Both Oxford and Cambridge will ask you to fill out alongside your essay a little cover sheet. It's a single side of A4, and this is all about getting hold of the context. They want to know, when did you write this essay? Did you write it, a year before you applied? Did you write it 6 weeks before you applied? How long did you spend on it? Is this something that you did in class as an in-class mock? Did you get like an hour and a half for it? Or did you spend 6 weeks on it? How much help did you get? Did your English teacher, did your history teacher, whatever, did they read like 6 drafts and help you change things? Did your dad, who has a PhD, come and help you out? How much of this is, not just how much of this is your own work, but how much are we seeing that you are improving and editing and developing what you're doing in this essay? Why did you write it? Did you write it specifically to send into Oxford and Cambridge? They really ask you not to do that. Although obviously there's no way to find out. Was it, like I say, was it an in-class mock? Was it part of your EPQ? What was the situation here? Why are you writing this particular piece of work? If it's a piece of work that's on a subject that you are really passionate about, that's going to end up with a whole sort of different things to judge it against than if it was something on a set text that you were doing that you didn't like very much. Is this your favorite book, the book that you are really obsessed with, the ideas that you're really interested in? Or is it you banging out an essay about the Crucible and you didn't enjoy the Crucible? Obviously you want to polish it, but you don't want to polish it too much. And, again, as ever, you can exaggerate in your personal statement in a university application. Everyone does, but don't exaggerate too much. Not least because, and this happens to a lot of students, you may forget what you said you had done between sending it in and the interview, and you don't want to be caught out. Now, sticking with that point of exaggeration, it's time for a poem. Today's poem is Kubla Khan by Samuel Taylor Coleridge. Here's the poem. It begins, in Xanadu did Kubla Khan a stately pleasure dome decree, where Alph the sacred river ran through caverns measureless to man than to a sunless sea. And it continues. Now, doubtless you are confused by the appearance of the poem in this webinar, but I promise there is a reason. And that reason is up there. You'll see written 1797, published 1816. That's a 19-year gap. That's a long old time. That's longer than many of the people on this call will have been alive. Hopefully a majority, given the age people normally go to university at. So why is there a poem in the webinar this week? Coleridge claims that this poem came to him fully formed. The whole poem just popped into his mind in a dream. He also said that there were other verses too, but before he could write them down, a visitor interrupted him. Coleridge says that he didn't have to edit anything in the poem. He didn't have to do a second draft. He just took the poem out of his head onto the page, one step. Now, James, does this sound true?
I mean, who am I to suggest that it isn't? But I'm probably leaning towards the fact that it isn't.
Yeah, I don't tend to think that this story that Coleridge tells is true. And the relevance here is to these pieces of written work. It can be really tempting to send in something that you have spent weeks and months on, that you have moved every comma, changed every full stop. And this goes for the personal statement as well, that you have poured an unbelievable amount of time and effort into your piece of work. And then at the end, you write on the little sheet that asks the context, you said, oh yeah, this took me 10 minutes. I did this between washing my face and brushing my teeth one morning. I wrote it on the bus. For me, this is very easy. It's really important to be honest about what you're doing in these with these cover sheets, with these pieces of written work, but also to understand what the person reading is trying to find out. They're not trying to find out what your absolute total number one best piece of work is if you're given an absolutely infinite amount of time and potentially a lot of support from university educated parents and teachers. They want to get a taste of the kind of work that you're interested in, the kind of work that you can do, but they don't want to see something that is completely perfect. What you're trying to do here is you want to help the person reading understand how clever you are. Oh, and this page has typos in it. I'm sorry about that, everyone. You're trying to help them know that how smart and interesting you are, how good at spelling you are, unlike me. But most of all, you're trying to give them a sense of you, your personality, your interests, why you want to study the subject, why you, rather than someone else who might be more polished, who might have had more help, who might be a little bit slicker. They want someone who is interested in the ideas they're going to be studying and who shows room for growth and potential. We talked about gradient earlier on. That's what we really want to emphasize in these pieces of writing, that you can improve, that this isn't all you can do. You want to be expressing why you want to do the course, not so much why you'd be good at it. Pretty much everyone who's applying would be pretty good at the course. What you want to show is why you're the one who is the most motivated, the most interested, who's going to produce the most interesting work, who's going to get the most out of it. It's not about getting a 2-1 and leaving. It's about really enjoying the course, really engaging with it, really getting as much out of it as you possibly can. That's what you want to be showing in this written work. You want to be like this, which is a diamond that has not yet been polished or cut. You don't want to be showing yourself off as if you're the finished article in these pieces of written work, in your personal statement. Even in the interview, you don't want to be suggesting that you're finished. Because if you show up and go, I am very smart and lovely and wonderful and a beautiful shining diamond, and they will say, oh, great, doesn't sound like you need us. Doesn't sound like you need our help. We're going to take this other guy who is going to benefit from all of the things we're going to do to polish them up. If you're already perfect, then there's really no point going to university. If you're already too smart, then don't apply to study there, apply to teach there. That's what you want to avoid. Now, that brings us to the end of my half of the slides, which I hope James has enjoyed immensely. They've been a little bit more fun than usual. If there's anyone joining us today who has been to previous webinars, if you liked it being a little bit more fun as we've gone for this week, please let me know. If you didn't like it, also let me know, and I won't do it again. So James, talk us through in a little bit more detail the support that we provide as an organisation.
Absolutely. Well, I liked it, Matt. And I particularly like the analogies as well. I think you've set the precedent there for future open days. See if you can get into double figures in the next one. That would be quite cool.
God.
A challenge has been laid out. Yeah, so many of you probably know, and if you don't, you now do. We are a preparation school for Oxford and Cambridge. So this is what we do. We work with students every year to prepare them effectively so that when they apply, they've got the best possible chance of getting an offer. So generally what we do, we have a chat with parents and students. We find out a little bit more about you and your application, what it is potentially that we could do to help, and so on and so forth. And then we work with students on programs. So I'm just going to give you a general overview of what a program tends to look like, just for some context. So a program tends to consist of one-to-one tutoring. So generally we will subject and university match a tutor. So if you're applying to history and English at Oxford, we will endeavour to allocate a tutor who themselves studied history and English at Oxford. So you're working with a tutor who's been through the same process as you. They've done very well in that process themselves, and they work with students to get offers as well. So of course, working with a tutor has many benefits. I won't bore you by going into it now, but yeah, one-to-one tutoring is a big part of our programs. Alongside that, we also have our resources and materials. So we have created ourselves an enormous catalogue of materials and resources for the different subjects. We debate this every week, don't we, Matt? But I think we've published over 100 books now for the Oxbridge applications.
Oh, it's a lot of books.
It's a lot of books. And we have created an online student portal, which all of our students use, where we have a kind of syllabus of learning towards the tests. We have video series academies, reading lists. Our students submit their personal statement drafts, their written work in this case, and their essays, and so on and so forth. So alongside tutoring, there's a whole sort of curriculum of materials our students work with. Thirdly,
ooh, there we go.
We also have weekly enrichment sessions. So a big part of preparing for an Oxbridge application, particularly the interview phase, is broadening your understanding of your topic and your interests within your subject, and really developing and practicing your ability to discuss what you have read, because that is how you're assessed in an interview. A lot of students will go into their interview having done lots of reading, fantastic. They'll never really have actually practiced discussing, what they've read and what their interests are. So our enrichment sessions run on Sunday afternoons. We have different sort of subject areas, and we explore topics within the subject, and we actually practice, discussing them and, debating topics every week. And then we also have some intensive courses. So we tend to have an intensive course for each part of an application: personal statement, test, interview. And these are sort of consolidatory weekends. They serve as a sort of final springboard into the different elements of an application. So yeah, that's generally what a program looks like. So the idea is to take away some of the pressure from you as a student, rather than kind of worrying about what to do, when to do it, take away some of the guesswork, give a student a really clear structure so that they can be most effective with, their efforts and their energies. Yeah, there we go.
Fab stuff, James. The good news is this does all seem to work. This slide's a little bit out of date. We're now up to over 500 offers from Oxford and Cambridge as an organisation, and that's a record that we're really proud of. It compares really flatteringly with even some of the more expensive schools in the country. We don't have the outfits of Eton, as I like to say each week, but we do have the results. I'm disappointed about the outfits thing. I've been talking to Rohan about it. He doesn't think he would look good in the hat. I think I would look good in the hat, but that still doesn't convince him as an argument. If you've enjoyed this webinar, please do write a review and pop it on Trustpilot. I will add your review of this webinar to all future webinars, if that's an incentive, as well as it being a great place to find out about the experiences that our customers have had with us, the students we've worked with, and to really get a sense of how we like to work beyond just us saying it. As while we are very trustworthy, I'm sure speaking to a third party and hearing from them is even more helpful. You can also listen to our podcast that's hosted by our founder Rohan and our colleague Will. They go through all sorts of topics, right the way from admissions tests through to zombie apocalypses. And that's a really interesting listen. And they have finally invited me to be on now, so I can promote it in good conscience, whereas previously I could not, because I'm a very petty sort of person. So what we will do now is we will take some questions. Before we get going, one answer is that a lot of the questions that hopefully you will all be asking will be fairly personal, fairly specific to your circumstances. It is very difficult to answer those in as much detail as we would like in this format. That is because we would like to go and look at resources, look through our data, and that's quite difficult to do while I'm also doing a PowerPoint presentation. So if you have really detailed personal queries, please do book a consultation with us, and hopefully, well, I'm sure you're all more than smart enough to figure out how to do it by yourselves, but to be on the safe side, here is a fun little video that I've put together showing how it's done. So, first question. Let's have a look. And okay, Sally asks about written work. She asks, does your teacher need to sign off on the written work? And for handwritten essays, can you photocopy them, or would you need to word process them? Good news is I know the answer to this one. That's probably why I chose it. So often they will ask for the work that you send in to have been marked by one of your teachers. This helps them understand the context of your schooling, understand the context of the piece of work that you've sent in. And so ideally, you want to be having a bit of a conversation with your teachers when you're coming to send these pieces of work in, so that you can pick out something that you're really proud of, that you think represents you really well, and also something that the teacher has a similar view on, as hopefully they will also have a good sense of what's going to show you in the best light. Oxford and Cambridge are both happy to have things photocopied if they were handwritten in the first place, as long as they can read the handwriting. I'm sure that you have marvelous handwriting, Sally. This tends to be more of a problem in my experience with boys. Boys tend to have dreadful handwriting. And so handwritten is absolutely fine. If you want to go to the trouble of typing it back up with a word processor, you can, but there's no problem with sending in handwritten work at all, as long as people can read it. But as I say, I'm sure you have marvelous handwriting, much better than mine, which is absolutely dreadful. I've recently discovered. I hadn't had to write anything by hand for a little while up until this week, and I can barely read my writing at this point. And I'm the one who write it. It's me. I should know. We'll take another question. Ahana asks, what percentage of the admission is assessed on your A-level predicted grades versus GCSE grades? James, do you have an answer on this one?
Yeah, so I mean, it's mostly based on GCSEs because they're attained grades, but they do take your kind of predictions into account. However, I don't know what the statistic is, Matt, but I think a large proportion of predicted grades actually turn out to be incorrect. So they have to be taken with a little bit of a pinch of salt. And I believe in certain instances, if you've proven yourself to be a strong enough applicant, there have been cases where students have applied with predicted grades lower than the entry requirements of their course and been given a conditional offer. They've been given, so for example, if it's AAA, there have been in some cases, students who've been given a conditional offer based on achieving AAA in their A levels, but having actually applied with predicted grades of 2 A's and a B. It's very unlikely, and the reality is you need to try and achieve higher than the entry requirements. But yeah, all being said, GCSEs are generally looked at much more than your AS predictions.
Yes, and the reason, of course, for that is that your GCSEs, those really happened, whereas predictions are predictions. Next, Irena asks about students who are located outside of the UK for admissions tests and for interviews. So this is an interesting one. So admissions tests, normally you can do them at your school. If you're planning to apply to Oxford and Cambridge, it's a good idea to speak to your school about this in advance. The more notice you give them, the happier they will be. And it's fairly straightforward for your school to arrange to be able to administer the tests there. And if not, you can go and sit them at a Pearson Centre most of the time. And I'm pretty sure there's a Pearson Centre in Gibraltar somewhere. I'm not sure where, because I've never been to Gibraltar, but I think there is one. Now, as far as interviews go, the last couple of years, because of the virus, Oxford and Cambridge were operating their interviews wholly online. So we did have the slightly ludicrous situation where you could be applying to Oxford despite living in Oxford and having to go online to do your interview, even though you could have just walked 10 minutes down the road. Now, I don't believe there's been any confirmation on the situation this year. I very much hope that the interviews are back to being in person. Having spoken to some admissions tutors at Oxford, no one liked doing them online. The students didn't like it. The admissions tutors didn't like it. Everyone found it an unhappy experience, and I really hope that things are going back to in person. However, since doing it online has worked, it has been fine. They've done it for a couple of cycles. They know what they're doing now. I'm sure that there'll be an option to undertake the interview online if you're not able to arrange travel up to Oxford and Cambridge to do the interview that way. My experience is that schools are exceptionally flexible about this. My school was absolutely delighted to give me a couple of days off to go to Oxford and not get in all those years ago. So this is one of those ones where it's worth speaking to your school and getting things sort of planned out well in advance. But admissions tests, you shouldn't have to go anywhere. Interviews, hopefully you can, but probably you won't be obliged. I'd say I very much recommend going if you get the chance. It is a really interesting experience. Even if you don't get in, going and spending a day or two up there, really getting a sense of the place is a really interesting thing, and not an experience I would want to miss out on if I had the chance to do it again. Morton asks, cover sheets for your personal statement. Nope, don't need to worry about that. All of the contextual information for the personal statement is in the rest of the UCAS form. So the personal statement is just those 4,000 characters, including punctuation. No formatting marks. Can't make things italic in the personal statement. Can't make them bold, can't underline them. Let's see. Reagan asks about, or possibly Sam, asks about work experience. What are things that you might write about in lieu of work experience, James?
Do you mean in your personal statement?
Yes.
Well, definitely things that you've read. Wider reading is an enormous part of applications. So if you haven't had an opportunity to do work experience, bearing in mind that you don't necessarily need it, it's certainly not a requirement for the vast majority of subjects. Anything that you have done that demonstrates your interest in the subject. So the things that you've read, maybe the things that you've attended, if you've attended online lectures and things like that, all of that sort of stuff counts. It's really only medicine where you actually have to do work experience. And even then, I believe that online work experience counts in the rare case where you can't do any in person. Yeah, hope that helps.
Fab. We'll take a few more questions, but I don't want to drag this on too long. Elena asks about how decisions about which applicants to interview are made. Now, this is a little bit of a mystery in some sense. We know that there is a really strong correlation between performance and admissions tests and getting to the interview, but every year we have students who, as far as we can tell, are marvelous students who should by all rights be getting an interview, getting an offer, and for reasons we cannot fathom, they don't. The admissions process, for all that I study it, and this is my job, and I have spent many years trying to get as much information, as much data, as much insight into how these things work. Ultimately, we don't know for certain how the universities make their decisions at the person by person level. We have a really good sense of the overall decision-making process, but whether they pick person A or person B is always going to be a little bit of a mystery to us because the data just doesn't go down that far. So we know a lot about what works, but unfortunately we don't have any guarantees. But depending on the subject you're applying for, we can give you a really clear sense of what your chances are, and we know that we have all kinds of support that we can offer that will improve those chances. We just can't get them up to 100%, unfortunately. Much as I would like to, because that would be very satisfying. Rita asks about applying for, there's a mix of subjects they're interested in. I think this is a really good example of the kinds of things that we're able to tackle in our consultations, right, James?
Yeah, and I'd say in this question in particular, it is quite normal. So there might be a course that exists at Oxford or Cambridge, for example, like Anglo-Saxon studies, which doesn't exist at other universities. So you're submitting the same application, and so you may have to apply to other subjects. In that example, you might apply to Anglo-Saxon at Cambridge, history at Manchester. So I think that's kind of what you mean there. That's fine, that's very normal. You just got to make sure your personal statement encompasses all of those interests, really.
Yes, fab. Yeah, it's really helpful to have I mean, we have one of the services we provide is to have a real conversation with students who've studied these courses, and that can be incredibly helpful in terms of understanding what differences there are between them and what might really work well for you. I think we will call it a day there. I'm sorry if we didn't get to your question. We get a lot of questions every week, and I try and pick out a range of different ideas and problems so as to try and give people a kind of balanced sense of what's out there. We have an absolutely massive archive of these webinars. We are on track for webinar number one, open day number 100. Between now and the autumn, which is very exciting. So if you haven't found your question answered, first of all, please book a consultation with us. We will do our very best to find an answer for you there. If you can't wait that long, then do have a flick through our webinar archive. There are lots of, like I say, there are very nearly 100 of these that you can go back through. And if you have questions relating to particular subjects and particular parts of the application, it may be that we already have a lovely recording there which will answer all of your questions, and most importantly will give you the chance to spend another 40 minutes to an hour listening to me, which is really what everyone wants to spend their Saturday doing. So as I say, we'll close things off there. James, thank you so much for having joined me this week. It has been a pleasure as always.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Have a lovely rest of your weekend.
Yep. And we'll see you in 2 weeks' time when we will be talking about I can't remember what.
Something very exciting. Please do come along.
It'll be on the website. And we'll look forward to seeing as many of you as are available then. And as James says, have a lovely weekend. Goodbye, everyone.